like the goalkeeper is a very obvious choice, and it's not Dean Kelly, it's Shay Given. But like, I always felt really kind of bad for Shay Given for as good as he is. He maybe a bit of a stretch to say, is he one of the best Premier League players to not win the Premier League itself, or like how high up would he place on that list? But I think like because he didn't win any trophies at Newcastle, he was always erring a small bit on the underrated side. But like 130 caps for Ireland, and finally got an FA Cup medal with City. But like he's phenomenal, and I think actually for as good as he is, still a bit underappreciated.
Yeah, I think it was kind of unfortunate that the big move to City kind of came maybe a little too late in his career. I mean, obviously most goalkeepers can go on to their near 40, but I kind of felt he was slightly past his best then, and then Joe Hart was coming in and he was going to be England #1, and then kind of took him from that position because like he played for Newcastle a lot of years where they weren't very good. And he never really had a chance to win trophies. But if you saw him play every few months for Ireland, you were like, how is this guy not playing for a top club?
David, do you remember that game? Gerrard had an unbelievable game at St James's Park, and Liverpool won by 5 or 6, and Given still got man of the match.
Man of the match, that tells you it all.
That was like the story of his career, whereas David said he was kind of a lowly figure in a mediocre team, and he was linked with Man United a couple of times, like after Schmeichel left, when Barthez was having his little nightmares. Like it was a couple of chances to join there. Arsenal he was linked with for ages as well, and then the Man City one seemed to catch everyone on the hop, and as Davey said, the Joe Hart just coming onto the scene
out of nowhere,
scuppered him a bit. So it was unfortunate timing, but I think he does go down as one of the greats, and probably before his time, in the sense that he was quite good with his feet, and one of these high twitch goalkeepers that are quite common now.
Yeah, that's a good shout, Gareth, but he probably isn't the top. Yeah, how high up? Top 20 or 30 players, probably definitely goalkeepers. It's an obvious thing to say as well, but it is unlucky with players like that are just on the cusp, like when it is literally only one position to compete for, and the top clubs have their top goalkeeper. It's not like you can fill in as a centre back, when one of them gets injured to get your chance. Like they're only going to go and buy a player like Shay Given if they've got a huge gap in the team to go and get him. So you better be the number 1 at an average Premier League club, or be a number 2 at a big club. Play half the Premier League games. I don't know.
We'll probably come on to it, but he's one of the few players you could probably say is world class that Ireland have had in the last 20 years. That was as close to world class, if not, in that bracket, was knocking on the door, and we certainly don't have any of those kind of players now. So we probably didn't appreciate him quite as much as we should have when we had him.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see as well from who we pick on his side. That kind of, you had a bit of a golden generation, I suppose, for that 2002 World Cup group, where we didn't maybe realise at the time, and I suppose there's debate around as well, how positively that group was used to try and build more awareness about underage football in Ireland after that. And if you compare that to like the IRFU, for example, and how they were able to build the popularity of rugby after a few successful Munster and Leinster groups. But he's Shay Given, no doubt, in there, a goalkeeper. Go for right back.
Right back's the most entertaining one.
So stacked. There's 3 or 4 brilliant candidates.
Yeah.
Well, I've gone for Seamus Coleman. So I think for me anyway, he's kind of a bit of a League of Ireland hero as well, because obviously signed from Sligo Rovers, but people don't know how close he was to not even playing for Sligo Rovers. I think it was Frank McDonald? His name was Rob McDonald, actually, and Rob McDonald was in charge when Coleman signed for Sligo, and he was just about to send him out on loan to Harps, he wasn't getting a game, and McDonald got the sack, and that's when Paul Cook came in. Paul Cook really liked him, and they gave him a start in the team, and then that's how Everton caught wind of him then. But like, talk about the best 60 grand ever spent. And I know it's been said so many times about him, but he's, yeah, I think he's just been, he's been so consistent as well. And when he was linked with the likes of like United or Bayern, there was never, when those conversations were happening, there was never any inkling of like, would he be good enough to go there? It was a very sure thing that if he did happen to join one of the so-called big teams, he'd be well worth his place in one of those teams as well. So it's harsh on the likes of Gary Kelly, who like such a legendary figure at Leeds, and obviously played in 2 World Cups for Ireland as well. But Coleman just edges it for me.
I went for Steve Finnan. I was between Coleman and Finnan. Kelly is unbelievable as well. Then Stephen Kerr is an outside shape, but I just think Finnan, when he was at his peak, like he was so consistent like that with Coleman, but like Finnan at say Fulham years and then Liverpool, where he started 2 Champions League finals in 3 years and won an FA Cup in between them as well. I think he probably hit a slightly higher level than Coleman, maybe for not as long a time, but it was a bit of a toss up. But I went for Finnan just for that reason.
I actually went for Stephen Carr because, well, not just because his name lends itself to unbelievable headlines, but he was actually a really good player as well. Twice PFA Team of the Year, twice Tottenham Player of the Year, Gareth, sorry. But like he was a wing back before wing backs were actually in vogue, and going into that 2002 World Cup, he was the number one. Obviously had that really bad injury, and then Gary Kelly was supposed to come in and step in, but then Steve Finnan came out of nowhere and was just this revelation. He got a PFA Team of the Year nod himself with Fulham, so unbelievably stacked position for Ireland. But I'm going with Stephen Carr because in my formation we're going to try and play it from the back, and Stephen Carr is going to offer us that bit of width and dynamism on the right flank. So.
I think the deciding vote's down to me then, is it?
Yeah.
I haven't picked Gary Kelly or Matt Doherty. I've sort of solidified the Ulster vote and gone for Seamus Coleman. But I think it's a very close contest. I think Coleman is a bit more to his game than Steve Finnan. I think attacking wise, I think Coleman at his peak. So he was PFA Team of the Year in 2013-14. I mean, talk about an attacking fullback who can just, I think Everton's teams back then, him and Leighton Baines were a bit like Liverpool now, where they'd, the playmakers were essentially the fullbacks, and he's so much to his game. But yeah, I think there's great options. Any of them are good options, but my pick's Seamus Coleman.
That's a tough one. No wrong answer there.
No.
Yeah, that's good. No, but like you think of some of the positions that Ireland were blessed in, like defensively, actually, it's a really tough call. Despite having 5 options now, it is kind of hard to cement those in. I do think left back is a bit easier though if we want to go for that next.
Yeah, go for it.
Dennis Irwin. I'm going to guess everybody went for the same.
Yeah, Dennis Irwin. Yeah. Sure.
Similarly for he's the most decorated Irish player, joint most decorated Irish player. He had 19 trophies in his career. Like as Ferguson famously said, he made one mistake in 10 years for United. I think it was a back pass to Bergkamp at Highbury where they conceded a late goal. But he had everything as well. He had that dead ball specialist about him. And yeah, he was like 8 out of 10 every game. And I don't think anybody else in that position for Ireland comes close to him. He's one of the best Premier League defenders ever, so he's a start for this team.
Yeah, Ian Hart obviously has had a great career as well, but there's no one you didn't even have to think about Irwin on that one. Probably the best. Would you say, is he the best Premier League fullback of all time?
Yeah, exactly.
Him and Ashley Cole, I'd say.
Yeah,
close contest.
Yeah.
Even if you take the green tinted glasses off, and you always assume that Irish people just value their own players over others, but if you look at all-time Premier League 11s, it's almost always Ashley Cole at left back, and then an honourable mention for Dennis Irwin.
Yeah.
So that just shows you. And then Manchester United all-time 11s, it's pretty much always Dennis Irwin, and then Tony Dunn, who's another Irish fullback, is number 2, or Patrice Evers. So like absolutely top class, as Gareth said. 8 out of 10 every week, and again before his time, set piece specialist. It only took David Beckham came along and took the free kicks off him, so that was the only person who could do that would be Beckham.
Yeah, I think he would have had probably 5 or 10 more goals if Beckham hadn't been there. It was just that he's such a nice guy that he kind of, Beckham go on take them.
Yeah,
like he's just the ultimate team player, and it's a great player to have in your team.
Centre backs then, Gareth, do you want to get cracking?
I'll give you all 3.
Yeah, give us all 3.
So go for McGrath, Staunton, and Dunn. So I'll talk about them after. I'll let you just fire ahead, David. Whatever you had there.
I went for McGrath, Dunn, and O'Shea.
I went O'Shea, McGrath, and Staunton.
I went McGrath, O'Shea, Dunn. So McGrath is definite, and then the other 2 are.
Well, McGrath is the most obvious choice, and again, I think maybe not to the same level of presence in those all-time Premier League teams or what have you as Irwin would be, but as someone who was considered to be edging on, if not world class, despite the fact they had chronic knee problems and obviously suffered with alcoholism as well during his career. Like, he played 88 Euros and then 1994 World Cups. He's only one of, I think, 5 or 6 defenders to win the PFA Player of the Year award. And obviously, given our age, we weren't as blessed to see him for as much of his career as other people. But anything I've read about him always talked about his positional awareness. And by all accounts, you'd never see him making a sliding tackle because he read the game so well he would never have to. He's a bit like Van Dijk in that sense, I think.
Yeah.
He just, or rather that Van Dijk was like him, was that he's positionally so aware and deceitfully quick, as far as like McCarthy was putting it as well. But like for all of us, obviously he's the easy choice out of that back 3.
Yeah.
Or even going back, I think very late in his career, like, his knees were completely done. He could barely run. Yet he was one of Derby's best players in his last year in the Premier League. You could just mark he marked Alan Shearer out of a game, and I think he had a very good game against United. And then Ferguson just thought, what a player he could have been. He still was, an unbelievable player, but if it wasn't for the injuries and the alcoholic problems, like he could have been considered one of the best ever, I'd say.
Is it almost like we mentioned last time though, with the Johnny Evans situation, where he was let go, one of those players that Fergie let go, and then you look at it after and say, you look 4 or 5 years down the line, he's still turning in unbelievable performances. Do you think it's kind of similar trajectory there?
I think Ferguson in that one just almost had to make a statement where he looked at the likes of McGrath and Norman Whiteside, and as good as the players were, what they represented in terms of a culture and trying to get away from that boozy British footballer stereotype. And unfortunately, McGrath had to be sacrificed in that regard. But as the lads have said, he went on and had an incredible career. Like, most of his best Ireland days came post United, and such was his technical ability that he was played in midfield really for most of his career. And we had unbelievable selection at centre halves in the 80s and early 90s. So unbelievable talent. Like, it'd be incredible to have someone like that around now. And as we said about Given, McGrath, he would fit so well in 2020, this ball playing centre back, stepping out from the back. So just an unbelievable talent and one of the shoe-ins in this team, I'd say.
Yeah.
I think as well, Ferguson had the luxury of knowing that he could let McGrath go because he had the likes of Gary Pallister there as well. And I was saying earlier about the handful of defenders who'd won the PFA award. I think actually Pallister won it the year before McGrath won it, so a bit different to Johnny Evans in that sense. And that, like, he could afford to let him go, and he knew that he had the cushion there to kind of soften that loss. But like easy choice for this team. Well, we had a bit of a combination then of Dunn, Staunton, and O'Shea, isn't it?
Yeah, all aboard the Honey Monster train.
Well, I think.
Yeah.
Say again, Davy?
Were the 3 Richard Dunns?
I voted Dunn.
I voted Dunn as well.
Yeah, so he's probably the next popular, is he?
Yeah, well, like he's a Premier League mainstay and part of that City team who came up, and obviously pre-money, he was one of their, if not their best player. Like I think he won their Player of the Year 4 times in a row.
Yeah, 4 years in a row. Yeah.
Yeah, and then was in the Premier League Team of the Year as well.
I think was that his first year at Villa? I think. Yeah, his first year at Villa. I think under O'Neill, wasn't it?
Okay. Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. So that would have been what, 2010.
Around then, yeah, would have been.
So, and then he must have over 400 Premier League appearances as well. Like he's just, he was so, I suppose, instrumental at Man City side in particular, and fantastic for Ireland too. So about 80 caps for his country, and it's always rock solid. He does carry that record of most own goals, and I think he's joint holder for most red cards. But he's like old school rock solid defender, and I think it was Micah Richards. I was reading an interview when we were researching this, and Micah Richards had said, like, obviously he had trained with Terry and Ferdinand at their best, and he would say like Richard is just up there with him as well. So when you hear personal accounts about him like that too, I think he just edges John O'Shea for me.
He was such he wasn't the most naturally talented defender, but he was in that kind of Jamie Carragher mold of just putting his body on the line, like similar player with a lot of OGs as well. He was generally the last ditch defender. So I think that's same with the red cards and stuff, but he was the type of player like you'd have pride watching him for Ireland or at club level. Like he was the fan favourite of you're going to get 100% out of him every week, like literally putting his body on the line for the team. So for me, when it was a 4-4-2 even, he was my second choice alongside McGrath. So I hold him in very high esteem.
Yeah, see, I think his peak was around sort of 2009, 2010, and we all remember that Russia game for Ireland, where just nothing could get past him, and he was that kind of defender, like when he was in the mood, like it was just very hard for the opposition to deal with him, to get past him.
And Ronan, you went for O'Shea then?
Yeah. Well, mine was more of a culture of football selection, lads. I just if we're playing 5-3-2, I want my 2 centre halves to come out with the ball, because McGrath's going to sit in there, and we're going to have O'Shea and Staunton come out and sort of play. And O'Shea obviously played in midfield himself for United down the years. I think where he falls down a little bit is his versatility, because he was so adept at playing in multiple positions that I think he ended up playing obviously both full-back positions, centre half and midfield for Man United. And it was only in his latter years where he got a chance to play a centre half for Ireland and did quite well there as well. So it's a pity O'Shea and Dunn. It seemed like one of them was always injured or we never got to see that pairing enough, and probably should have. I don't know, like Sean St. Ledger probably got a few more caps than he merited.
Paul McShane.
Like Trapattoni's loyalty to these players, I think John O'Shea, when his legs were starting to go, like he obviously had that 2009 season where he got his way into the United starting team for that whole season at right back, and it ended with the Champions League final in Rome where Henry gave him a tired time, but like Henry's done that to plenty of people. But like that shows you how well established he was at United. I think centre back probably was his best position, and I'm going to give him the nod there. But Richard Dunn, it was between him and Dunn, and I just about give it to O'Shea.
Who else went for O'Shea? I went for O'Shea too. Did anyone else?
I did as well, yeah.
Yeah, so O'Shea.
One of the forgotten things as well was 2008-09 when United broke defensive records. everyone remembers the team as Van der Sar, Vidic, Ferdinand, Evra, but yeah, O'Shea was the other guy there. So
he was a good goal threat as well. He scored some big goals. One at Highbury, one at Anfield. Scored a goal in the Champions League semi-final against Arsenal as well. So like a big player, came up in big moments for Man United.
That goal against Germany for Ireland as well.
Yeah, for Ireland as well.
Yeah, and like in terms of how many players in this team are going to have Premier League medals, do you know what I mean? He actually has he's a drawer full of Premier League medals, so that has to count for something as well.
Yeah. Gareth, did you? And then was it Ronan and Gareth who went for Staunton as well?
Stephen Staunton, lads, come on.
That was a tough one.
13 Premier League 13 World Cup appearances for Ireland. He played in 3 World Cups, obviously captained Ireland in 2002 and Ireland's first centurion as well. And like his Premier League career was great as well. Played
really good, yeah.
Bit of throughout, and again, adept with the ball at his feet, and he's from the town, so that's that puts him over the top.
Jump up and down.
I think he can get a rough time of it because people think of Steve Staunton the manager before Steve Staunton the player, and you think of that Liverpool side that he joined. So that was that famous '89 game against Arsenal where they had lost the league, but he was part of that team that really won it in '90, and then he went on. Like his career seemed to go on forever in the Premier League. He had over 400 appearances, I think, as well in the top flight. And yeah, like I think anybody who makes Phil Babb look like a world beater deserves a spot in this team. So no, I think like he's been overlooked, I think, by a generation who watch football now. But he was instrumental in that Villa team challenging United for the first Premier League title as well, I should say. And himself and McGrath were quite formidable by all accounts as well when they played together. So yeah, no, I think he's earned a spot there for me.
Gareth, do you want to name your midfield then?
Yeah, so I went for one very obvious choice. I just find this was probably harder in the back five, but Roy Keane, Damien Duff, and Jason McAteer I went for as my third pick. Yeah, I'll let you go ahead before trying to defend that last pick.
The team chemistry there, McAteer and Keane, how's that going to work? I went for a bit of a left field shout. I went for Duff, Roy Keane, obviously, and then Andy Townsend was my third midfielder. Just on his stats, like he actually has quite a lot of assists, more than I thought. 30 Premier League assists and 13 goals. I think he won 2 League Cups in 3 years and stuff as well. So he was pretty good there in the early years of the league.
This is where I'm going to give an honourable mention to a colleague, Zinedine Kilban, who will not make it into this team at either left wing back or centre midfield. But obviously, he played his entire career basically in the Premier League, which shouldn't be sniffed at, obviously, and played for Ireland throughout that whole time. I think he barely missed an international when he was fit. He played like 100 games in a row nearly, so deserves a mention. But he's not getting on my team. Roy Keane is the captain. He's in the holding position. And then 2 ridiculous shouts I'm going to put in Wesley Houlihan and Stephen Ireland, because they're the 2 most creative players we've produced in the last 15 years, I'd say. And in this team where we have a back 5 sitting back, we need some creativity in there. So Roy Keane's going to hold the fort, and Wes Houlihan and Stephen Ireland are just going to start creating magic. Basically magic in the centre of the park for Ireland. So
baller midfield there. Stephen Kenny team, I think.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that Wesley Houlihan inclusion though.
There you go. But like the heights he hit, granted, I think it was kind of the stereotype where he was considered too small for the hustle and bustle of Premier League, but he proved it when he was past his best. In that game against Germany, for example, where he didn't dominate the game or anything like it, but he was never afraid to take the ball in tight situations. He picked open that defence a couple of times. It just shows you what he could have achieved if people gave him his head when he was in his mid-20s, late 20s.
And the rough and tumble at a championship, which is constantly talked about how physical it is. He was championship team in a decade as well, which is proof enough in itself.
Unbelievable talent. And he played 4 full seasons in the Premier League, and he was an impactful player in that, so he's getting in. And Stephen Ireland was a sensational player, lads. I know he only played a couple of times for Ireland, but Man City's player of the year in a team that welcomed a couple of those superstars like Robinho and all that kind of stuff. Stephen Ireland was the lad who rose to the top, and he actually in the games he did play for Ireland before his grandmother died or didn't die or whatever happened there, he was class. Like he was. You're looking at this guy and thinking, right, we're going to build our team around him for the next 10 years, and it didn't work out. But in terms of what he did in the Premier League for a couple of different clubs, he was class.
Yeah, I had Stephen Ireland as well. I suppose that it's a Premier League 11 as opposed to performances for Ireland 11. So I think at his peak, yeah, he was player of the year for a good Man City team. And I mean, we talked about him so much because we wanted him so much in the team and we really needed that kind of player. I think there was a really interesting interview with him in the Athletic there last year, where it showed that he had 2 young kids at the time, and he was really struggling kind of with off the field stuff, that sort of led to his decisions, and it's just a pity things didn't work out differently. Yeah, the other players I had, obviously Roy Keane, and the other player I had, I was stuck between Matt Holland and Stephen Reid. I was tempted to go for Stephen Reid, only he didn't play that many games, I suppose. The whole way through his career, it was the same for Ireland and for Blackburn, and elsewhere he really struggled with injuries. So I went for Matt Holland just because I think he had that great goal against Cameroon, obviously, but he was one of Ipswich's best players when they finished 5th in the Premier League, and then went on to play for quite a good Charlton team before they got relegated. I included Duff in my forwards, so that's why I don't have him in the midfield.
I did as well. So we can safely say Duff is in the team somewhere.
Yeah, we're not just trolling you here with with Matt Holland over Damien Duff,
or Stephen Reid for that matter.
Yeah, things aren't looking good for Andy Townsend either.
Yeah, Jason McAteer he was a very nostalgic.
I had McAteer in my 4 when it's 4. Kilban's a great mention as well, Ronan. Like, he's very unfortunate that Ireland's the 2 left-sided players in the team, even though Aaron was playing at left back, and Duff, like, you couldn't pick a harder side to get into up the pitch. So he's quite unlucky that way, but he probably would be a shoe-in if he played centre mid, say. But what about your strikers then, Gareth? Had you 2 strikers, was it?
Yeah, 2 then I think are very easy picks as well. So Niall Quinn and Robbie Keane.
Same.
It's very straightforward. Yeah. The lads have come up their sleeves here. Look at the menacing faces on them too.
Caleb Folin, no. I just Duff in that 2002 World Cup when like Mick McCarthy actually played this kind of formation. He played like a 3-4-3, and it started with Duff and Keane right up the top. And they were unbelievable. Like Duff, talk about world class. I think he's probably with the exception of Roy Keane, maybe the world class Premier League player we've had. Like Paul McGrath probably had his best years just before the Premier League era, but Damien Duff, when he went to Chelsea, could have gone anywhere. Like he was linked with every club in Europe basically, and just an unbelievable talent. And I'm going to put him, I think, where he's at his most dangerous, where he doesn't have to do any toiling running back in midfield. I'm just going to leave him. He's going to sit in behind Robbie Keane, and Robbie Keane's going to do his stuff. Robbie Keane, again, probably conversely, unlike the likes of Erwin or Keane, probably gets less credit in Ireland than he does elsewhere. I think if you see him on any of these Premier League goal shows or anything, he's up there with Shearer and Andy Cole and all these prolific goal scorers. But in Ireland, I think he's kind of dismissed as a bit of a glory hunter or a poacher, but a really impactful player for Ireland, and probably our best goal scorer ever in terms of not just the amount of goals he scored, but just his innate ability to finish chances. And I think he was probably best shown in a good team, where in 2002, when he had the supply from the likes of Duff, he was able to really excel. So Robbie Keane's in there for me.
Yeah, I had Damien Duff and Robbie Keane up front. Yeah, I think I can't believe how many sort of all-time Ireland teams I've seen without Robbie Keane in it. I think, yeah, it's a strange sort of situation. Like, I mean, he scored by far the most goals. I think, people say, well, he only scored against this team, but as we saw in the last qualifying when we were only beating Gibraltar 1-0, we really need that kind of player. And I think the Premier League, every season for Spurs. He scored more than 10 goals. I think it was over 5 or 6 consecutive seasons. And I know he had 10 goals doesn't seem like unbelievable, but like, you know, something to be said for that rather than scoring 25 one year and scoring 2 the next year. You know, he was very consistent, and when he had a partnership with Berbatov, that they were really excellent together.
Yeah.
And I think that Spurs team, they won the League Cup, did they? So yeah, I have Keane and Duff, and I was thinking as well, as Ronan said, about the 2002 World Cup when Ireland played some really good football with those two up front.
I think Shane Long is actually a little bit. I was between him and Quinn, but I just thought it was looking at Quinn's partnership with Phillips that season, where Phillips scored 30 goals. I think Quinn scored 14. Like, that was Long's probably never been part of anything that prolific. He's never been all about the goals. He's kind of more an industrious striker. But the Keane thing as well, like people try and use the Liverpool thing against them, I find sometimes as well. Whereas, you know, people have been on record, Stephen Gerrard and like saying he was signed as a poacher effectively, or someone who's going to get your goals, and then Benitez tried to play him as like a number 10 behind Torres and stuff. So I think, and then he went back to Spurs and banged in the goals again. So he's got something like 126 goals, 37 assists in the league. So I would argue he's arguably in the world class caliber as well that Ronan just talked about. When you look through the team, given his stats, club and country.
Yeah, I think just on Duff and Keane, I think within Ireland, Duff is can be viewed more favourably, I think, because he didn't have that coacher title associated with him the way Keane had. But I think more internationally or outside Ireland, it's Keane who's heralded as the one who's often world class, and Duff can be forgotten about. But as Ronan said, like when he left for Chelsea, anybody would have taken him. I think he was actually in UEFA's Team of the Year when he was at Blackburn as well. And when he went to Fulham, he was very important in their run to the Europa League final. But yeah, I think he often can be overshadowed by Robbie Keane. And that's a credit to how good Robbie Keane actually was. Like you think how important he was even in his latter years to the international side as well. Bit like Jermaine Defoe, like his old partner in a way, where regardless of how he progressed in age, I think his true goal scoring ability never really waned. Like, and that I think that's always a sign of like a real like great goal scorer. And yeah, I think he in his time was absolutely world class. Definitely, I think he's the 12th highest Premier League scorer of all time. And he's got the cosmopolitan experience of Milan. What's not the lovely?
Soon to be joined by Jeff Hendrick in that category.
Yeah.
So what have you got in the way of a team there now?
Well, we have the back six sorted. Roy Keane is a definite then in the middle. We have to decide whether we're going to put in Duff in midfield, or I think Niall Quinn and Stephen Ireland have 2 votes each. So do we have to, what were other midfield candidates?
I'm happy to sacrifice McAteer for Ireland and then stick Duff further forward if that's what you're about.
Or if everyone's got 2, we could go Ireland and Duff in midfield, and then Quinn and
Keane up front.
Does that add up?
We end up playing 4-4-2 anyway.
That adds up, I think. Yeah.
No, it's
because 2 of us had 5-3-2.
5-3-2.
Yeah. What a team that is.
It's like a 5-2-1-2. It's a very FIFA formation, but
yeah.
we'll make it work.
Yeah, but McGrath and O'Shea can seamlessly slot into midfield if required. So
yeah, we can just stick O'Shea anywhere to fill it up. So.
I was going to put him in goals actually.
Yeah.
Oh, he played in goals as well.
Yeah, against Spurs. He actually saved the 1-on-1 against Robbie Keane, didn't he, in that match?
Yeah.
So I suppose we haven't discussed. We just all said Roy Keane. No explanation, but I think that really sums up how. I mean, he's by far and away best Irish Premier League player. I mean, I think he'd make a lot of people's all-time Premier League team in one of the hardest positions. So
he's always in the conversation at worst. So I think everything is from attitude to ability, which annoys me sometimes as well. That I think people look at like his persona as much as like technically he was fantastic.
Yeah.
Can be overlooked.
Was it Jared or someone said he was like one of the best passers he'd seen? Or
yeah, was it Rooney said he was his favourite player to play with because his passing was so good into feet.
Yeah, he's outrageous. He's actually, we were saying about Irwin earlier, was the joint most decorated player, Irish player in the Premier League. Keane is the other one. He's got 19 trophies as well. But you talk about the debate of like all-time Premier League 11s and the likes. He was in the PFA's team of the century. Like that's the kind of caliber of player you're talking about. And you think of all the players who have come through the midfield positions in the Premier League. Like to be involved in that conversation, like he was in his time one of the best players in the world. You wouldn't have to question it. Like
I think him and Regard are the only two Irish players to win the PFA Player of the Year, aren't they?
Yeah, and I think the Keane won the Players' Player, is what he won, and then he was in like the Team of the Year, must have been 4 or 5 as well. Yeah, different level, and probably like he's the kind of guy you would name in a team and say like you wouldn't expect to see somebody of that caliber again in an Irish shirt, for example. He's that good, like.
And as well, Keane proved, there's always the question of how good are the players around you, and Keane dominated midfields with Ireland against Holland and Portugal that had much superior players, and he managed to inspire really good players at United. So like he did both.
And I think if there's ever going to be a Michael Jordan type documentary about an Irish sports person, it's going to be Roy Keane. I think you could definitely get 10 episodes out of him. But it's kind of, I think I'm right in saying Seamus Coleman is the only current Premier League player in the team. Is that right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of, it's a bit of an indictment of the quality on display at the moment. And that 0-2 team, as we said at the very start, probably we didn't appreciate what we had at the time, because that qualifying group that Ireland came out of with Portugal and Holland, who were unbelievable at Euro 2000, and Ireland still managed to get past both of them and get into the World Cup proper. Roy Keane was instrumental in that. Like everyone talks about the Holland game, rightly so, because it's stuck in everybody's head and it was an amazing day. And McAteer's goal was brilliant. But that game against Portugal, people should look up how good Roy Keane was, because in a game against Rui Costa and Luis Figo, Roy Keane was the best player on the pitch. Like it's an incredible performance, and that 0-2 team was a golden generation, and probably should be remembered as such.
I assume we all have Rory Delap on the bench for the long throws, do we?
Rory Delap has to be the most underused Irish player in my lifetime. He was affecting the Premier League on a weekly basis, where people had to game plan against him, and yet he didn't get a look in under Trapattoni. So that made no sense. It's not as if we had an abundance of riches.
I think Kevin Doyle's a good shout for the bench as well. Similar to, kind of honorable mention to Shane Long, for example. Like he was, for a time at Wolves before they got relegated, was really good, and then he was just kind of I suppose a victim of the club falling apart. But I remember him at one point really being linked with a move to Arsenal, and like I think at Wolves and at QPR as well, he's pretty solid. Like, so not a bad man to have on your bench, particularly when you see the kind of bench that they might have now.
Yeah, like Long is only 4 Premier League goals off Quinn, which when you think about it, he's not regarded as a goal scorer at all. I think he was very close to my team. Ian Hart to be stuck on the bench, Staunton.
I suppose Quinn wasn't really considered a goal scorer either. I suppose it would be the kind of argument.
And then you have Wesley Hewland as the search for the bench.
Once again, Wes Hewland has been ostracised from the Irish setup. We're as guilty as anyone else.
We're part of the problem. So we go through the team was Given, 5-3-2 formation, Given, goals. Obviously, right back was Coleman, left back, or right wing back Coleman, left wing back Irwin. 3 centre backs were Richard Dunn, John O'Shea, Paul McGrath. Midfield 3 was Roy Keane, Damien Duff, and Stephen Ireland. And then up front we Niall Quinn and Robbie Keane. Is that it?
Strong team.
Very strong team, yeah. Roy Keane captain, is that what we're saying?
Absolutely. Paul McGrath vice captain.
Who would you like, of all the Irish managers that have been in charge since the Premier League started, who would you like to be in charge of that team?
Stephen Kenny.
Probably Ronan Mullen, given his reasoning for all those selections.
Not Steve Staunton, anyway.
Probably. Well, Mick McCarthy managed most of them, I suppose. He had his go with them. Would you rather Mick or Martin O'Neill? David O'Leary?
Not Martin O'Neill. Martin O'Neill contradicts everything that Ronan wants to do with that side.
Yeah. Give me Leicester City era Martin O'Neill when he actually had a bit of vibrancy about him and cared about football. I might give him the nod, but not the one we were subjected to. Jesus Christ!
If we're talking about peak managerial sort of performance, I suppose Trapp was like, because they're top 10 managers of all time, but we got the sort of near the 80 version.
You would have loved Niall Quinn. He would have just been launching that ball up to Niall Quinn. Bypass stuff and all the boys. Stephen Ireland would quit football all over again if he had to play under Trapp Stone.
It'd be Gary Doherty be up front
getting in instead of Roy Keane or something.
Gary Doherty,
yeah, he didn't get mentioned at all. How versatile? Purely centre back or purely centre forward, depending on how he felt each week. Andy Reid was a player I always liked too.
Yeah.
What about Kenny Cunningham?
Yeah, I think.
TST.
Yeah. The defence is just so stacked, like it's so hard to.
Oh yeah, but just as an honourable mention,
he's
never gonna get on the starting 11 there. But
Kevin Doyle for Redden was very good.
Kevin Doyle, Redden wouldn't have been in the Premier League if it wasn't for Kevin Doyle. Ben Whelan?
Glenn Whelan is a good shout now, in fairness.
Yeah.
Because he played 10 years in the Premier League more or less with Stoke, and they tried to replace him so many times, and every time they tried to replace him with somebody, he kept him out of the team. So I think Tony Pearce said something to that effect, that the best compliment I can give you is I tried to get rid of you so many times, but I couldn't do it. So
I don't recall saying good luck, Glenn.
But he was a stalwart, and he wouldn't have played that many Premier League games if it wasn't. It was a reflection of his quality, you know.
Exactly. Someone obviously.
Sorry, go ahead, David.
I was just gonna say, like, the Irish public have always been on his back so much, but like so many different managers have always stuck with him, for club and country. So he's obviously one of those players who brings a lot to the table and might not necessarily be apparent on TV at home or whatever.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. He's someone who, from Irish fans' perspective, has gotten a hard rap. Because it's hard to see what he contributes, I suppose, when you're watching the game on TV. But like, I've actually got a good friend of mine is a big Villa fan, and he'll tell you just how important he was for Villa coming back up the Premier League. Like, you know, he's and yeah, like the fact that he's always been around the Premier League will tell you just how respected he's been by different managers. So probably an honourable mention that maybe people wouldn't expect to hear, but it is worthy all the same, I think.
Another one we haven't mentioned is James McCarthy, who was very good, I think, under Martinez at Everton and Wigan. He's kind of gone off the boil, or well, just injuries really in recent years. But 5 years ago, you know, he was very good, and maybe he didn't always bring it to Ireland, but you know, there were times at Euro 2016 when he was probably Ireland's best midfielder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good shout. Somebody who you think didn't get a good enough run in Ireland, sure, to make an impact on your mind when you're picking a team like this, I suppose. But
Ray Houghton, another player. Ray Houghton didn't get a shout either. He was probably the best years of his career came before the Premier League, but he still had a pretty solid first couple of years of Premier League. He was, you know, made a big contribution. So probably just, as you said, with Gareth, with players like O'Leary and that, just on the wrong side of the divide with the Premier League.
Got an idea for the next podcast if you're interested in keeping on all-time 11 theme.
Yeah.
Can we go for our all-time average Premier League 11? Totally average players.
Yeah, that sounds good. I don't know. You'll be a long list.
What are the parameters for that, Gareth?
Yeah.
People, I suppose, it's people who maybe didn't hit their full potential or were just distinctly average. Like the first person I think of is Matt Jarvis, for example.
Yeah, Salif Jao came to my mind. Really good.
Yeah.
So you mean they had to have some promise that they didn't fulfill? Or are we talking about absolute, like bang average, mediocre? How did these lads actually play in the Premier League?
I think Salif Jao is a nice, like, actually played so well at the World Cup, and then the man couldn't even fucking pass the ball 5 yards and came to live with it.
You got to have it was like team most likely to finish 14th in the Premier League or something.
Yeah.
Well, this team, hopefully, that's maybe that's a good aim to set out then when you're thinking about this, is like, if I put all these guys together, will they finish mid-table?
Ricardo Gardner, left wing.
Yeah, or like Charles and Zogby.
Charles Logby is a great one, of just not reaching that level. Yeah, Peter O'Dwingy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about. So maybe we won't divulge any more names.
Yeah.
Something to think about. It could be a good one to do for our next one.
Yeah.
Grand.
Definitely. How excited are you for Stephen Kenny, Ronan?
I don't know. I'd be more excited if I knew when the game's going to be. What are they thinking? Is the first game going to be the qualifier at this stage?
It looks like it. Well, yeah, it depends on. Aren't they talking about October maybe for the qualifier?
Because initially they were hoping to like get a couple of Nations League games and then a couple of friendlies and then the qualifier. But I think they're going to turn all that around because it seems ages away. Like it's a full year till the Euros, but they're actually running out of time a little bit to get
that's it.
all the qualification done for that. So, it can't be any worse. That's the best thing about it.
Yeah.
Like the football can't be any worse. And he's got the same pool of players, more or less. If anything, he's going to add some strength and depth with the under-21s.
Yeah, I think it's the ideal man to be there who will promote youth and stuff. With the age group that's coming through is incredibly promising.
So who's the most likely? Who's going to be the big breakthrough player from that under-21s team? Because like the under-21s isn't always a reflection, because obviously Nigel Reo-Coker was England's under-21 captain and he played a game for the senior team.
I really like Jay Malumbi is a good player.
Yeah.
I think midfield, especially in Ireland, like we're crying out for a long-term centre midfielder. I think obviously like Troy Parrott's probably been the most hype, but Adam Ida I think is fantastic as well from Norwich. Like you see the two of them, like our striking options, which has been the Achilles heel for so many years now. You're looking at Obafemi coming through, though, Parrott, Ida, and then you're talking like Maguire, and these guys are still pretty young as well. Like it'd be interesting to see how he does under Kenny. A couple of those championship players like Alan Brown, I've always been a big fan of from Preston. Kind of the creative players will be like Robbie Brady. I want to see how he he should be entering his peak now. So I think Kenny's the right man to be at the helm for that.
Yeah, we need a midfielder to step up, because getting Glenn Whelan out of retirement kind of summed up where we were in midfield selection. And James McCarthy is an interesting one, because we all thought when he was at Hamilton that when he came to the Premier League he might be the next guy, and it didn't turn out. So we need someone like Malumbi or Connor
Josh Cullen. Josh Cullen's another good player.
Yeah. So hopefully, of all those players, we need a midfielder to maybe step up and make the leap to become a Premier League regular. Because Jeff Hendrick, again, I still think Jeff Hendrick can have like a second coming, because
I really like Jeff Hendrick.
He was so good at the Euros. Yeah, he should just go. Like if he doesn't play any games, it doesn't matter. At least he can say he went there.
Yeah, he has the look for it as well. He looks like a Milan player.
But apparently, after the Euros, Serie A were raving about Jeff Hendrick because he was so good against Italy. And it was kind of like when Gary Breen got linked with Inter Milan after he scored at the 2002 World Cup.
Another man who didn't get a mention. It's great.
That's because the whole team would have been him.